Hello. Oh. YouTube. There's a warning message. Okay, I'll lower it a little. Oh, what's this? Quality factor. Okay. So 20 by 1080 by 60. I'm currently streaming at 16. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. 9x f. Quality factor is 13%. Oh, it's supposed to be old. Yeah. I don't like bringing up his tweet without quoting it. Like, you can't tell what to make of this without clicking through to the link. The text doesn't stand on its own. It's good if links give more information rather than being mandatory to understand what's being said. I do not have respect for Tyson. This is extremely vague. But yeah, it seems pretty inductivist. Yep, standard popper point. I don't like this sentence. This is picky. Like, not everything I say is very relevant to this particular author, but it's bad to put a pronoun in the first sentence of a paragraph that refers to the previous paragraph. It's better to write out what you're talking about at the beginning of your paragraph and then use pronouns later in the paragraph to refer within paragraph. References to other paragraphs are harder to follow. So I think it is knowledge. So observations have also been talked about. So that's something that could confuse people. They might not know if it refers to observations or to knowledge. So I guess multiple solutions, not one. We also frequently identify multiple problems, not one. Sometimes we can identify like variant problems or you can be like unsure what the problem is and be like, it could be this, it could be this. You have like a bunch of ideas about what the problem is instead of just one clear picture of it. And then you can have solutions that you think would work with like most versions of what the problem is, or even all of them. People won't really know who we is. Like for one thing, it's possible to learn without other people involved. But other people can be helpful. It's fine. Anyways, it's fine. We seek. Hi, Rami. Okay, the using the word falsify here is actually an error. Because in critical rationalism, the term falsify frequently refers to empirical. What the fuck is wrong with Medium? I can't write a comment while seeing the thing I'm replying to at the same time. It's like one or the other only. Go to full screen. You literally cannot have a comment box on the same page as the blog post. That's ridiculous. Okay. Starting a paragraph with this is similar to using it. It's a backwards reference. And when you put backwards references to not the same paragraph, they're harder to follow because they could refer to something from like the last sentence of the previous paragraph or anywhere in the previous paragraph or an ongoing theme over multiple paragraphs. There's like more places to look. But this is also an issue. I need text editor, I guess. I'm not going to respond here, actually. Let's go to... I need some sort of popper thread. Maybe I should make a new thread just for this. where I should go. One of the links from here. Yeah, this might be good. Wait. Oh no, I'm not at the top of the page. Okay, let's see. Oh, this might be the one I wanted. See what this is? Okay, I'm just gonna reply here for now. Go back to the post. Oh, I'm still higher than the recommended bitrate. The more info button doesn't work, even though I'm in Chrome. Does it? No, that doesn't work. Whatever. Okay. Why? You cannot applaud your own story. What is this? Is this a bookmark? I don't even know how to get notified. I followed this guy, and I don't think I got an email notification when he put this post up. I have no idea if I'm gonna get like comment notifications. Oops, I didn't even mean to click on that. Oh well. Okay, I was gonna reply to this. Let's take a look. I have links open for this on my laptop. I'm gonna find those. Handoff gonna. Perfect. Okay, I got the link from one computer to the other. Why is it not loading? I already have it open on a different page. I mean, on my laptop. Okay, good enough. I'm just gonna move on. I'm gonna leave those open. Alright, I wanted to do some FI emails. There's so many. I'll just go back towards the beginning and find some grammar stuff. Yeah, this one needs more. This one's hard to explain. It's not gonna be fast, so I'm gonna skip it for now. You can see the date difference. See, that's July 16, and then there's a gap. That was like the only one I was actually saving when I was less busy. Oh, this is super long. Oh well, let's read it anyways. But choosing as a verbal, it is a non-finite verb. This is just ambiguous. In context, it's not clarifying like what you mean by verb. I am now reading an FI email. Is something wrong with my stream? I see Twitter on my preview, but I see mail on my actual screen. Alright. I'm gonna lower the bitrate. I lowered the bitrate to 13,000 from 16. Yesterday I streamed with 15 and it seemed to work okay. Yeah, the preview looks frozen. But I guess you guys can still hear me. I'll just try starting and stopping in OBS. I think that'll work. Okay, I started and stopped. Will it now update? Let's try switching screens and enabling my preview. Oh, that just showed up. Wait, are some apps being left out somehow? Is it streaming the wrong computer screen? What the fuck? Okay, I was somehow on the wrong computer screen. That's really bad. I guess I should leave the preview visible. Okay, well now it's working. Was it on the wrong screen the whole time? When I like wrote the whole reply. I did the Crit Rat blog post on Medium, and I did the reply to Kieran on my blog about the central limit theorem. And it might have been broken the entire time. That sucks. Well, I don't think there was anything very interesting showing on my screen. So that's good. Okay, well, I was reading this. Wait, how to be an adjective? Wait, to sing would be. This one makes no sense. Wait, isn't that how you spell participle? Or is that? Wait. Oh, okay. Well, the obvious problems I had were I was trying to write something, and for example, I did not know, should I put a comma here or should I not put a comma here? So English grammar helps with that kind of thing. It also helps with reading other people's stuff when you're wondering, is this ambiguous? Am I reading it wrong? Am I confused? Did the person write it wrong? Like, did they make an error or am I making an error? Or what's going on? It can help you like clearly understand the proper reading. It also helps with precise thinking. Like, you learn how to think precisely and how to like pay attention to details and get things right, which is a just generically useful skill. Similar to how you can learn a similar thing from programming, where again, details matter. A lot of discussions have problems because people get confused about things like what modifies what, like which words apply to which other words. How do they group together? And you get a lot of miscommunications that could have been avoided because people write poorly, and it's disorganized, and it's just more confusing to read. Grammar is also a good area for taking ideas that you have an intuitive understanding of and then learning to have a conscious understanding where you actually know what you're doing instead of going by feel. And it's good to be able to take things you used to do intuitively and when you want to, learn how they actually work. Because when you're relying on intuition, it's hard to correct your errors. And when you actually learn how things work properly, you're in a much better position to change your mind about some of the details, or even a major thing. But also a lot of what I've been saying was about like advanced details of English grammar. But for some people, they screw up the basics of English grammar, and that's a lot worse. Like, it's a lot less optional. You want to be writing like mostly correctly. Because if you're just using language like significantly wrong, you have a problem. You're not going to be able to communicate as well. You're going to misunderstand things people say. But if you're like top 5% fluent English speaker with a large vocabulary and like good intuitions about language, then from there you can get into like learning the actual details. But if you're not that level, then that can cause like serious communication problems, and like a lot of precise statements will just be missed by you, where someone was trying to say a specific thing and you're just reading vaguely the ballpark of what they said. It comes from a verb, like it actually is a verb. You can't get rid of the historical roots of like to sing. Like, where is that coming from? Why does it exist? What does it mean? It is related to the verb sing. Okay, good enough. So with me and my, the my sounds fine. But if you change it to Joe versus Joe's, I think you should be able to talk about Joe doing something, not just Joe's doing something possessive. Which sounds pretty non-standard to me. And I think the basic thing going on is the phrase or clause as a whole functions as, say, a noun, while internally the words have their own interactions or relationships. Yeah, I don't think songs is a modifier. I agree. Yeah, I think songs receives the singing action. I agree with that as well. For me personally, I already knew what sentences meant in the vast majority of cases. My intuition for that was already really, really good, so I could figure out what stuff meant. But my grammar knowledge makes it easier for me to verbalize why the sentence means what it does and explain it to other people and show it to them. And like break it down and communicate my reasoning more. And for people who are less good at grammar or less good at reading and make more mistakes, then it will more often, having knowledge of grammar will more often let them fix those mistakes because they come up more often. Oh yeah, I remember I read some of this before. This is incorrect. I think that this is pretty funny when you read it the other way with the other example. When I make America in a great way. That's definitely not what the phrase means. One of the difficulties with grammar knowledge as the key to what people said is that it's really useful up to the point where you have as much grammar knowledge as they do. But it's not very useful past that because they're not using grammar knowledge they don't have. Like they weren't basing what they said on grammar knowledge they didn't know. So if you know less grammar knowledge than them, it's a problem because they'll be using grammar, that they know but you don't. But if you know more grammar knowledge than them, it's not directly useful in a simple, straightforward way for reading what they said, because you just know extra things they're not using. It's just because English developed that way. Like, verbs were useful, so people found more ways to use them. Like, I think that's just the main thing going on. The same way that we take nouns like wood, and we start using it as an adjective to describe a wooden desk. And there are plenty of examples like that where there's no inflection change. Like, you can have a metal desk. It's not like there's no en ending necessary. It's like the exact same word. Metal can be a noun or adjective without even the inflection change. I don't know what exercise routine is for. Like, what the purpose of that message is. I think both of these are actually phrased to make it sound sort of like want something as a modifier. Whereas I think songs as an object, which is a little bit different. It's kind of like she loved singing when the action of the singing was songs. Oh, I see. So you're saying exercise is like metal, wood, and toy. That makes sense. You got it with like grocery store as well. I don't think grocery is like a proper adjective. It is serving as a non-finite verb. It's just not serving as a finite verb. I think it really helps to look up what they are. The short version is that non-finite verbs do not describe a particular action with, they're not like bound to a particular thing that actually happened. They're talking about the verb in general in some way. That's why they commonly lack a subject or a tense. The tense says when something happened and the subject says who did it. If you leave one of those out, then you no longer are talking about a thing that some subject actually did. Like, it's not an action that actually happened. That's why non-finite verbs are commonly talking about like the concept of singing or something like that. Like here, the actual action, the thing that happened, the event, is liking. John did a liking action. And then to sing songs is not a thing that's happening like in the sentence. It's talking about like it could happen in general. By the way, the subject here, like, it doesn't directly have a subject, but it's implied that we're talking about John. It's like John likes John to sing songs. John does not mean John likes Susie to sing songs. Like, that's not what this means. The person who sings the songs that John likes to be sung is John. It's not anyone. He doesn't like anyone singing songs. He likes himself singing songs. There actually is a subject here, even though there's no subject like directly there. It's just implied. But what there isn't here is a binding to a point in time. Like John sang songs is saying there was a point in time in the past when that action actually happened. But to sing songs, or John to sing songs, is not something actually happening, which is like a finite verb is bound to a particular something. Like it's finite because it's limited to some sort of actual event or action or something like that. Whereas a non-finite verb in some way is like unbounded, unlimited. It's not specified fully. Yeah, that's it. Finite verbs, like you're fully specifying an event, whereas non-finite verbs, like some part of it is unspecified. In this case, it's talking about singing songs in general. So it's not specifying when they get sung, or not fully. Like, it's not like yesterday John sang a song is specifying like a particular thing in a way that to sing songs doesn't. Hopefully that's clear enough, but also look it up helps. The implied subject thing is actually similar to prepositions sometimes. You can find English sentences where you see a preposition and it doesn't have an object right after it. Like sometimes prepositions are in the end of sentences. So if it's the last word of a sentence, there's clearly no object after it. But I looked at some cases, and in every case there was an implied object, meaning you could think about it and say, what does this preposition actually apply to? You can figure out what earlier thing in the sentence it was actually dealing with. Because like the concept of, say, of doesn't actually make sense by itself alone. You have to figure out if there isn't some noun right after of, then it's implied that it has to do with something that was already mentioned. That is similar to sing songs, doesn't have a subject right before it, but it's implied that we're talking about John singing the songs, not everyone doing it. You get actually subjectless verbals more with participles and gerunds, I think. Or is it gerunds? Yeah, I think gerunds. Because people will say things like singing is cool. And in that sentence, singing does not have a subject. It means anyone singing, singing in general. Or if you say like a broken window, the non-finite verb break in that sentence doesn't have a subject. It's not saying who broke it. It doesn't tell you anything about who did the breaking action. If you have the infinitive as the subject of the sentence, like to fart is gross, then again, it doesn't have a subject. It means like anyone farting. It's not saying who does the farting. How much time they need to understand the grammar completely depends on how much they already know. Because, like, to be fair, you would have to start with like an infant. Like, you know, they're born, and then they start working on understanding grammar. So, like, infants cannot speak for months, like a year or something. And they certainly don't know grammar very well for, say, 5 or more years. So it takes a lot of work, but you and other adults have already done a lot of work to understand grammar. Even if it's in a different language, there's a lot of overlap. And then it also depends a lot on how good someone is at learning. But the article was meant to be like pretty understandable to most well-educated, intelligent people who are reasonably fluent in English. Like, who don't sound ESL or something, and don't sound like children when they write. It doesn't take super long to read, and if one can remember what it said reasonably well and only like refer back to things a few times and then maybe do a second read later, then it's mostly like how much practice time do you need? And I would think the typical person should practice more than the example sentences I put in the article. But how much more is hard to say. I think one of the ways the grammar stuff is useful is if you want to like analyze some philosophy text, a lot of times people get stuck. They're just sort of like, I don't know what to make of it, I don't know how to analyze it, I don't know what to say about it. And they're often like, they don't fully understand it. And when you're stuck, one of the things you can do is start breaking down the grammar. And that'll help you find a way to make forward progress that's relatively easy. It's not necessarily going to make a huge amount of forward progress, but it can often be something. And just making a little bit of forward progress sometimes makes something else easier and can snowball. I forget if I posted this, but I think it's like make Joe angry means make Joe be angry. And the object of make is the implied infinitive be, which has both a subject and an object. That is my best interpretation in general, that I think makes it like elegant instead of just giving it like calling it a special case or saying there's a special rule, or some verbs just take two like object-like things. Yeah, I agree that you shouldn't view of the game as an object complement. It's just a like regular modifier. You don't need a special category. This one also, I think, does not need a special category because it's in a positive, or at least like very similar to a positive. Alright, so I'm on July 21 at 8:23 a.m. I have not read that, no. Oh shit, she said that in her very next post. Yeah, I agree. That was also my idea. In my reading, angry is an adjective too, because it's make Joe be angry. And be is a linking verb, taking angry as a complement, not an object. Economics in One Lesson is a good book by Henry Hazlitt. You can search for it. It's free from the Mises Institute to download. And also some of Mises's shorter books are not super hard. Like the liberalism book, I think, is fairly readable. It's not at all like Human Action. It's called Liberalism in the Classical Tradition. You can also learn some bits of economics from his books, Bureaucracy. That one was a fairly easy read with some really good info, although it's more about like the government, like the logic of how government works and sort of like that. It wasn't, if by economics you mean like trade and money, you know, it wasn't focused on that, but it was still within the sphere of economics taken more broadly. You can also go to George Reisman's page on Amazon, and he has like 25 $1 Kindle books, and they're all like on the short side, like mini books. And so you could try some of those. And then also there is Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal by Ayn Rand. Or it's actually a collection book, so it has essays by a few other people also. So the prepositional phrase is supposed to be like in an angry way. Yeah, I don't agree with that. These are actually awkward as a positives because that's normally like noun noun. But this is like noun adjective. So it's a little different. But I think it's still in the same ballpark. I think that this is too inelegant, and I don't agree with this as a way to read it. It's like too much rewriting and trying to restructure the sentence. And in a way that I don't think is like the actual intent. I do agree it's talking about the pig's condition though. To some extent, dashes can do anything. Like, they sort of break normal grammar and let you just throw stuff in. However, there's also like a progression. I think Peikoff talked about it in his grammar lectures, where parentheses are more of an aside, commas are like a medium amount of an aside, and dashes on the other hand. So parentheses are for stuff that's like less important, like significantly less important than the other stuff in the sentence. It's like a side note. Commas phrases typically are stuff that's a little less important than the main part of the sentence. You're setting off to the side like a little bit, whereas parentheses are setting off a lot. Dashes, on the other hand, are for things that are like important, like you want attention for them. Like parentheses, it's like less attention, like a lot less. Commas a little less, and dashes are like more attention. It's like something to grab your attention. So that's why they don't work well for parentheses in general. So it's not that like, it's not a strict grammar rule where you couldn't use dashes, because they do set things off. Like they let you have a separate phrase like embedded in something. They're actually the best at interrupting the usual grammar of the sentence and just letting you insert something wherever you feel like it. But as part of that, they're like attention grabbing, So as a style issue, you normally don't want to use them for minor points. Yeah, there's no to here. Like in English, we just leave out the to in this case for whatever reason. I don't know the exact rules for when you put the to or not. But yeah, I got what you mean. You just meant the infinitive form of be, not the present tense or something. Or no, present tense is. So maybe be alone is clear, but it comes up with other verbs where the infinitive form and the present tense can get mixed up, like sing. Yeah, though I would put the verb before the subject is how I normally do this kind of analysis. So that's a minor thing. Right, Kate replying to Justin. Yeah, I agree with this. Okay, so if you ask yourself, what is the thing the person prefers? You can't say coffee. It's not that they prefer coffee. And it's certainly not that they prefer blackness. It's actually the thing they prefer is the combined thing of black coffee. They want their coffee to be black. That's like actually conceptually the thing they prefer. This functions as a unit, which is the object of prefer, I think. Oops. They explained something like that in a link that Anne found that I liked. I think it might be the same thread if I just go back enough. Oh, maybe it was this last one? Or this one? There's so many links. Okay, so this page claims there are subjects of infinitives, but does not give much detail. There's one that had some useful comments. Oh yeah, I think this is like what I wanted to find. Okay, yeah, that was it. Anyways, what does I prefer? The answer is my coffee to be black. It's like the whole thing. I give this link. I agree with that. Yeah, the reason non-finite verbs can make nouns. So a finite verb tells you about like a verbing happening, like an action or event or something like that. A non-finite verb is normally telling you about like the concept of an action. It's like the concept of singing or something rather than singing actually happening. And so the concept of singing is a noun. It's a thing you can discuss. So this is something different. This sentence has two clauses. This means it was my birthday, she forgot that. Like, there are two clauses. That is a reference word. The word that refers to it was my birthday. It's also a subordinator. It's means that, like, maybe not subordinator, but it has the dual role of introducing the second clause as well as referring to the second clause. I think maybe it's better to think of this as not a subordinate clause, but a coordinate clause. It's actually, in general, like the more important clause in this kind of construction. Anyway, you certainly can nest finite clauses inside of finite clauses. A clear way to do it is with a relative pronoun. You get like John, comma, who is cool, comma, ate a steak, period. So within the like John ate a steak clause, you have John is cool. The word who lets you do that. It lets you put a finite clause within a finite clause. I think, by the way, that it's important to differentiate between nested finite clauses and non-nested clauses, where they just have a conjunction between them and the two clauses are separate, versus one clause is inside the other clause. I think that's like a major distinction that a lot of grammar materials don't emphasize or explain properly. Instead, they talk about dependent and independent clauses, which I think is really confused, and I never talk about that. I think that nested and non-nested clauses is a similar concept to dependent and independent clauses. Like, it applies to a lot of the same things with the same answer. But I think it's a much better way to look at it. I don't really view it was my birthday as a noun clause. I think that that is the direct object of forgot, and it was my birthday as a regular finite clause, basically, and that the word that refers to this other clause. I don't think this is weird if you understand what non-finite verbs are, like I was explaining earlier. I don't see why that would be weird. A non-finite verb is a verb, like literally, it's just a verb where you're not fully specifying that an action actually took place with a particular actor and a particular like event or point in time or whatever where it actually happened. Some information is being left out, some part of what's going on is left like unspecified, unbounded, rather than like limited to what you just said happened. Yeah, so infinitive clauses nest inside finite clauses more easily. You want to nest a finite clause inside a finite clause. Now your sentence has two different actions that actually happened, and that is a different sort of thing, and you need some sort of conjunction or relative pronoun or subordinator or something to allow that, because normally a sentence has one action. You're talking about one event, one verbing, one happening. If you have two of those, you need something that allows it. However, it's completely fine to throw in some non-finite verbs, because they're still just talking about like the one thing that happened. And then you have, e.g., if you have singing is fun, it works fine. Like, you don't need to, the singing can just play the subject role. It doesn't need to have a conjunction or a relative pronoun or anything. Finite clauses do not directly go into typical sentence slots like object, subject, complement, adjective, adverb. Because a finite clause is a different and bigger, like more complicated kind of thing than those smaller parts of speech. But a non-finite clause, it gives less information than a finite clause, and that's why it's able to fit into those slots for smaller things better without being like introduced something. I'm gonna respond to this. Alright, so I'll post that later. I just want to I'd like to notify people if I talked about their stuff in my videos so that they can actually find it. Yeah, and I think conceptually, the infinitive makes sense there. Like, him and angry are actually linked, just like with a linking verb. Conceptually, like, I think it's the same as if you're sort of saying him is. Like, you could say him is angry, I made that. If you said something like that, like, you're not screwing up the concepts. The linking verb link between him and angry like seems fine to me. I don't think that's changing the meaning. I did change the meaning in other ways. Like I said, I made that happen. Like, there were some changes there, but you could correspond it more precisely if you wanted to. I'm not going to read all of this, but it looks okay. Like, the general concept seemed fine. Okay, I don't agree with this. It's not like super wrong. Like it's not like violating the hard rules of grammar, but I don't think it's like the best interpretation. This is not how I would say it. Like I don't like the concept of a dependent clause, but it's not wrong. It doesn't really explain why though. This is a bad explanation. It's not very conceptual. It's very parochial. It's just giving some specific details that commonly apply. It doesn't even mention like the common lack of subject. And it definitely doesn't explain the concept of a finite verb talking about like an event that actually happens versus a non-finite not doing it. I don't think I read that somewhere like directly saying that. I think that was just sort of what I figured out was going on. Yeah, main verb, that's fine, yes. Right, yeah, I think independent and dependent clauses are bad concepts, but basically I think yes. I don't think it just sounds that way. I think that was like the intention. I think that was like the goal of that phrasing, which I think is wrong. I don't think it was just like an accidental sounding. I think it was the design, like the intention. But yeah, I agree. I agree. Agree. We kind of already covered this stuff earlier. I don't think the object complement explanation is much of an explanation. Like, it doesn't say how or why it works in the way that I think the implied infinitive, I think it makes it like really clear what's going on and how it works and like why it means what it means. Whereas the object complement is just sort of like, you can throw in extra words there. It doesn't really, yeah, it doesn't give you enough info, I think. Yeah, I agree. Clause is the better word when there is a subject and a verb. Well, you can say, as I do, that the full clause is, it was my birthday. It gives you the information about what was forgotten. The meaning here is sort of like, she forgot, colon, quote mark, it was my birthday, end quote, period. Or like, she forgot the following fact, colon, quote mark, etc. That works kind of like a shorthand for constructions like that. Okay, so what is this? You remind him to eat a banana. This is a weird sentence. Like, I think you reminded him to eat a banana would be more normal. Does it mean you should remind him? Is it like imperative? Something? Is it telling the person what to do? I don't know. I'm gonna read it as you reminded him to eat a banana. I think that might get at the issues better. Okay, here, what is the recipient of the action verb remind? The thing being reminded is him to eat a banana. I think it's the whole thing. I think it's not him. I think remind who is the wrong question. Like, the answer to remind who is indeed just him. But the actual question is, like, what is the object of remind? What receives the reminding action? I think that's not a person. I think it's the whole thing. It's kind of hard to explain. If you phrase the question as remind what, then him to eat a banana answers the question well. So you can present him to eat a banana as the object without trouble. I think that the remind here simply didn't take a who as its object. It took a... You can say you should remind him or you reminded him or something with nothing else, in which case him is the object. But here, it's not just remind him, it's remind him to eat a banana. It's the reminding applies to a larger thing. I don't think this is right, because you can say, like, you should give a reminder to eat a banana. In which case you're talking about reminding to eat a banana without ever specifying who you're reminding. No person that is getting reminded that gets mentioned. So I think conceptually, like, there's some sort of implied context about, like, which people you should be reminding, or it wouldn't be a very useful statement. But grammatically, the person who's getting reminded or people are not in the sentence, and you can still have reminding to eat a banana as a concept. Oh, and you should give a reminder to eat a banana. Never mind. No, I don't agree with this attitude that only finite verbs should get clauses. They have to function as other parts of speech because they're giving less information than a finite clause gives. So it can't have the same role in speech as a finite clause. It has to be something else because it's different. And in particular, it's smaller. It's less information, so it should be some smaller thing like a noun instead of a finite clause. Like a non-finite clause is better at taking the noun slot in a sentence than the finite clause slot in the sentence because it's smaller than a finite clause. The key thing to look up is out. Oh, here, yeah. Out as adverb. That is the key thing. And then if you look up what it means as an adverb, I think you'll find that it works well. I'm not seeing the definition, I remember. I'm going to check other dictionaries. Oh, here we go, yeah. Like, chill to the fullest extent possible, I think makes a lot of sense for what the meaning is. I don't know about phrasal verbs. They seem to be frequently just some words got used together a lot, and now they have an idiomatic meaning. But frequently you can just interpret the words according to their original meanings or some specific meanings, and you get like roughly the same thing. Yeah, exactly this. So people are just treating a bunch of stuff as special cases when they don't actually have to, I think. There might be cases where it's where the combined phrase takes on a meaning that is different than the sum of its parts. There probably are some cases like that, but I think most of them aren't. I think most of them like reasonably well fit the meanings of the individual words used. Yeah, this seems fine, and then specifically, I think this is a good interpretation of what out means. Although there are other ones that could work, and it is definitely not the clearest phrase in common usage. Like it's a somewhat ambiguous phrase about exactly what people mean when they want to chill out. Like, you know the general idea of what they mean, and it could mean chill out to the fullest extent possible. Chill to the fullest extent possible. There are other meanings that also could make sense, like chill to a point of exhaustion or depletion, chill to a point of completion or satisfaction, chill in or into a state of extinction, inactivity, or non-existent. Alright, well that's a bit harsh. That's a bit much. They don't want to chill out so much that they stop existing. But there are maybe shades of this meaning, like just little hints of it in people's behavior and thinking patterns and stuff. Just a little piece of it. If certain, look up the term anyway. A relative clause can function as an adverb as well. You could have like the running that was fast, or that wasn't a finite verb. What about like John ran, which was unwise, on his way home? Is which was unwise an adverb clause modifying ran? Or maybe it refers to the whole thing John ran and says that was unwise? But that would also be an adverb, not an adjective, if it did that. This seems okay as like a thing you can try, and sometimes it'll help.